I disagree with that as somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat.
Yeah.
Not here, but, other places.
Okay. So this interview has been making its rounds for, I would argue, a good reason, because the interview between Jake Tapper and John Bolton, who I cannot stand, and I think most people, left or right, it doesn't matter, despise John Bolton. Justifiably so, but in this case, I'm actually okay with it because I appreciate at least he's being honest. And on top of the whole J6 thing, which is what they were talking about here, his John Bolton's stance was basically my stance, what I predicted what actually happened, and why all those people went into the Capitol. Right? We're going to look at that. Because he basically agrees with everything I was saying on why that happened. Because this whole left, like, he planned a coup and everything, that's bullshit. Trump didn't plan shit. Trump's not smart enough. Then also Bolton goes into sort of what we already know, and this is why I said I can't stand the dude. But I appreciate that he's being honest about what he did. Now, a lot of people cut this clip out of context. I don't know why. This is I'm going to show you the CNN one. A lot of people cut this out of context, where people or Bolton talks about the planning his coups, and everyone's saying Tapper uncritically just let him say that. That's not true. He actually does ask Bolton about this. It's like 5-10 seconds later, but for some reason everybody like cut out that part of the clip, I guess to go after Tapper. But I'm like, but that whole, he didn't even question him, he just let him say that, that's not true. He did. I'm going to show you that part.
I do want to ask, it does seem as though the president, and this is not a new phenomenon, but the president would go to experts, even people who are loyal to him, like Pat Cipollone. If you're the White House counsel in November 2020, you have been loyal to Donald Trump. Get advice, not listen to the advice, not heed the advice, and keep shopping around until you end up with this group of misfits with like Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell. Is he just not capable of hearing no?
Well, when it comes to his personal advantage,
Well, as we already know, that's who Trump is. He doesn't hear no. I don't know. Oh, who was it? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name right now. Who was talking about how you have to present things to Trump if you want to work for him in the White House. You can't tell him he's wrong or his ideal won't work. You can never do that. People were, because if you do, you get fired. What people were saying was, what you got to do is, that's a great idea, but what if we also did this, right? Or you had to lead him to the actually, the actually smart plan. You can never tell him he's wrong. So we know Trump hires yes men. We know this. However, most people in positions of power often do this.
The answer is he doesn't listen to anybody else. But I think it's also important to understand, while nothing Donald Trump did after the election in connection with the lie about the election fraud, none of it is defensible. None of it is defensible. It's also a mistake, as some people have said, including on the committee, the commentators, that somehow this was a carefully planned coup d'etat aimed at the Constitution. That's not the way Donald Trump does things. It's rambling from one half-vast idea to another, one plan that falls through and another comes up. That's what he was doing. As I say, none of it defensible.
This is exactly what I said. This is exactly what I said. I said, I don't think Trump planned for people to riot. I said, I don't think he's plotting this out. But I did say Trump is, you have to admit, at least minimally, I would argue more so, responsible, because the thing he does is he just runs his mouth, doesn't think of the consequences of what he's saying. So like I said, I think he gaslit stupid people into acting out, because the left shows clips of Trump and the right shows clips of Trump talking about, going to the Capitol. Both are taken out of context showing one side, but Trump was saying both things at once, which he was basically gaslighting. Because I said this, I said, Trump runs his mouth, he couldn't accept he lost, and then he goes up and he just starts talking and saying, they're stealing the country from you, this is our last stand, but be peaceful. But I mean, you can't say that and then say you have a political party that is literally stealing your country from you, because how would you react if somebody is literally stealing the country? What is standing outside the Capitol peacefully? What is that going to do? That's not going to do anything. Because if they're I wouldn't say rigging, because they did rig it, but they didn't. Rigging doesn't mean cheating. Those are two different things. But the cheating part, the whole stealing the election, you're literally saying they're forcibly, overthrowing your government. So why would you then say, but go do it peacefully? That doesn't make any sense. This is why I said Trump was just saying shit, and people reacted. And stupid people were gaslit and getting riled up and acted out. Which is why I said Trump is at least, like I said, even if you disagree, you have to admit he's marginally responsible. I think a lot more than marginally, but yes, he didn't choose his words carefully. I agree with Bolton that Trump is not smart enough to plan some kind of coup. He didn't know shit about the Constitution upon becoming president, and you tell me he's gonna plan a coup? I'm sorry, Trump is not smart enough for that. His ego caused stupid people to act out. Because, like I said, you can't tell someone they're forcibly stealing your country and then also say, but we gotta be peaceful about it. That does not make sense. That's gaslighting.
But you have to understand the nature of what the problem with Donald Trump is. He's, to use a Star Wars metaphor, a disturbance in the force. And it's not an attack on our democracy. It's Donald Trump looking out for Donald Trump. It's a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence.
I don't know that I agree with you. To be fair, with all due respect, one doesn't have to be brilliant to attempt a coup.
I disagree with that. As somebody who has helped plan coup d'etat, not here, but other places.
Okay, I appreciate the honesty that he just fucking said it. It was one of those things. We all knew it. He just wouldn't say it out loud. But now he's just so arrogant. He doesn't give a fuck. He's like, yeah, I did. Because we all know dude is an insane fucking sociopathic warmonger. But I would rather have an honest, insane sociopathic warmonger than one that tries to cover it up. Because at least now we know what we're doing. And there's already a reaction starting from this. But I will show you more, because I said I got to show you where Jake Tapper does push back on that. Not push back, but asks him to elaborate.
It takes a lot of work, and that's not what he did. It was just stumbling around from one idea to another. Ultimately, he did unleash the rioters at the Capitol. As to that, there's no doubt. But not to overthrow the Constitution, to buy more time to throw the matter back to the states to try and redo the issue. And if you don't believe that, you're going to overreact. And I think that's a real risk for the committee, which has done a lot of good work, mostly when the witnesses testify, not when the members are opining. It is invariably the case that when you go too far trying to prove your case, you undermine it. And I think you got...
I'm not going to lie. I don't know if anybody actually watched the J6 committee hearings, but that was a show trial. That was political theater. I don't know if anybody watched that, but I watched the first day. And I was like, what was the point of this? This doesn't seem much like a trial as much of it is, political theater, daytime TV. Because then I believe I just caught highlights after that because I was like, this is just hot garbage. They're saying we got new footage and it was just like more of what we've already seen just from different angles. And we still don't have an answer for the Ray Epps situation, which I still want to know about. Although, like I said, I don't think he's a Fed. I think he's a snitch. In my personal opinion, I think he was a snitch. Because feds often do that. They go after the guy that's in the most trouble, and they cut them deals for information, for encrypted communications, and they're just like, we'll protect you, because you're in the most trouble. You're on the hook the most out of everybody we got. Just give us some encrypted, they're like, just give us some encrypted communications with the rest of the Oath Keepers. We'll make sure the media protects you. I don't think he was a Fed.
Got to give credit to the intelligence of the American people to listen to the witnesses and let them come to the conclusion. And I think the fellow who had actually gone into the Capitol, who said today that he had blinders on and he was too loyal to one person, that is the central point.
I do want...
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I said. It was ignorance. because a lot of Trump's base, a lot of them are stupid. Like the hardcore Trumper base. I'm not talking about Republicans or conservatives. I'm talking about Trumpers. And just because not everyone watches my videos, Trumpers are the ride and die. Whatever Trump says is true. It doesn't matter. You'll go, these are my values. Trump will come out against those values or say something contradicts them, and immediately you're like, that's my value now too. Those are Trumpers. Republicans or conservatives that voted for Trump, that's a totally different thing.
I want to ask a follow-up. When we were talking about what is capable, what you need to do to be able to plan a coup, and you cited your expertise having planned coups.
I'm not going to get into the specifics, but
Successful coups?
well, I wrote about Venezuela in the book, and
Look how absolutely proud of himself he is. The dude's fucking smiling. And yet, this Venezuelan government is already has a reply because they are pissed.
It turned out not to be successful. Not that we had all that much to do with it, but I saw what it took for an opposition to try and overturn an illegally elected president, and they failed. The notion that Donald Trump was half as competent as the Venezuelan opposition is laughable. But I think there's another...
I feel like there's other stuff you're not telling me, though.
I'm sure there is. I think there's...
So see, that was the part a lot of people cut out, because they tried to say Jake Tapper didn't push back or asked to elaborate. He did. And now we already know what's going on in Venezuela. We already know they wanted to get rid of Maduro. Look, they got natural resources and they're not friendly to the U.S. The U.S. has a pattern of going, you got shit we want and you're not friendly to us. We'll just find another leader. Oh no, random rebels show up that are way too well armed and have access to stuff that they really shouldn't have. How did they get access to that? That kind of stuff happens.
There's another point here that came out in the testimony that's not been stressed enough. Deposition testimony by, I think his name was Donnell Harvin. I may have taken that down wrong. The chief of intelligence and homeland security for the District of Columbia government, who said, we were watching Twitter after Trump's tweet calling for the demonstration on January the 6th. We saw all of these implications, all of the concerns about the violence. I want to know where the rest of the government was, and I particularly want to know where members of Congress were. If this was so evident at the time...
That is also actually a very valid point, too. That strategically, it sounds like a good idea for Dems to, if they know this is going to happen, let it happen, play it to our advantage. So I can also see them weaponizing that in their favor, too.
Why there wasn't more security on the Hill long before the demonstrators ever turned up?
No, it's a good question. Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people who just lived here and had been paying attention were aware that there was a real potential for violence on that day.
I hope the committee gets into that. That's important.
I agree.
And of course, unsurprisingly, Venezuela is big mad. Now, understandably, Venezuela is big mad. Because Venezuela, or at least the Venezuelan government, lashes out at Bolton's coup claim. Venezuela's National Assembly voted on Thursday to condemn the comments by former U.S. Security Advisor John Bolton. Its leader, Jorge Rodriguez, described the apparent admission as extraordinary feat of brazenness. It's quite amazing. Dude just came out now and is just like, yeah, I did it. This was one of Trump's worst calls. Because whenever Bolton's around, weird stuff just starts to happen in other countries. Does anyone remember the Iran, the Iran sub-missile attack on the it was Norwegian and Japanese tankers, saying Iran attacked them, and it didn't really make any sense because the owners of the tanker was like, the damage to the ship are not on the bottom, and then the sailors, the Japanese sailors, were like, we were getting fired upon. Sounded like there was shots coming from overhead, and there's no damage under the tanker. And we all know Bolton's been wanting to go after Iran for a long time, including coordinating and speaking to the MEK, a terrorist group that has killed American soldiers. So we know who he is. He doesn't try to hide it. I just appreciate him going on the media and owning up to Venezuela. Because like I said, I don't care for Maduro. I don't see him as a especially effective leader, but they picked him. It's their country. It's their problem. I'm not an isolationist because isolationism is stupid, but a lot of this stuff, we're going into places we have no business in. Right, so jumping ahead a little bit, adding fuel to the suspicions in Caracas was the fact that Bolton's remark made in passing while discussing the January 6th attack on the Capitol was followed by a reference to Venezuela. He said he had written about Venezuela's political crisis in his memoir, that his actions there eventually did not succeed. Former Venezuelan cabinet minister Diosdado Cabello, I hope I said that right, also responded, calling Bolton an inept, like singular, and inept for who all the money former President Trump gave him could not perform the order he received. That does not necessarily mean he is effective. He's not effective, or the U.S. as a whole is not effective at destabilizing and destroying entire regions, as we already saw with the whole, Gaddafi situation. Because we've seen how Libya turned out. But, like I said, I just wanted to say he's right on this one. I agree with him with what he said, how whole J6 started with Trump not being smart enough to even plan something like this, that he just runs his mouth, and his arrogance caused stupid people, like the Trumpers, to lash out. And I also want to appreciate his honesty and just going up and being, yeah, I did Venezuela.